You're listening to Side by Side with Kathy Wilson, episode 38, The Calico Conundrum. Duncan, I think it would be good to go and have a quiet time by the fish pond. In fact, it would be a perfect opportunity to have a nap. Hickory expected Duncan to fall in with her idea because he usually did. But this time he wasn't jumping at the chance. No, he was standing there with a look of suspicion on his usually placid face. You don't need my authorization to go out and take a nap beside the fish pond. If you need permission, you can speak to the goldfish, not me. Duncan wasn't even considering Hickory's idea, so Hickory was forced to present a more viable alternative. Look here, Duncan. I don't suppose you have been paying a lot of attention to Ralph lately, but I have. Believe me, his fuse is burning shorter and shorter, and I think he is going to blow sky high very shortly. It would be wise just to clear the field and let him explode. Demons and Dalmatians, Hickory, if this has got you worried, then I better take Cat out for a walk. She will set him off and won't have a clue why. Duncan, you are only putting off the inevitable. It's better just to get it over with sooner rather than later. If he goes through the roof and starts being critical, then Cat will start to cry, and I just can't stand it when she cries. Now, Duncan was looking more than just worried. Oh, Dunk, Cat only cries when she thinks she is losing her argument. I thought you would have at least figured that out. Thus saying, Hickory requested to be let outside, and Duncan found his comfortable hideout under the table where he wouldn't be in the way. If Ralph was in a grumpy mood, Cat was going to need him. Hickory had definitely read the signs correctly. No sooner had Cat returned to the kitchen after opening the patio door for Hickory than Ralph decided it was time to have his say. While Cat poured coffee into 2 mugs and put the cream on the table, Ralph looked on with disfavor. She was trying to butter him up, but he wasn't having any of that. If she put the date squares out, he would let her have it with both barrels. Blasted woman, she knew well how much he liked his sweets. They were her secret weapon. Cat took the pan of date squares out of the bread box and put a few on a plate to go with the coffee. That did it. Look here, way back last winter, you agreed that we could get a kitten, and you haven't done anything about it. Do you expect one to come along, knock at the door, and bring in its suitcase? Have you even been looking for one? I'm getting really fed up with waiting for you to get that kitten. Cat watched as Ralph took a huge bite out of the date square. You don't have a kitten, that's true. But you are eating a date square, and you were not the one who made them either. So what has that got to do with the price of gold? Kittens and squares have nothing to do with each other, in case you were wondering. I'm merely pointing out that I am not lazy, but you are implying that I am. Duncan watched as Kathy reached for the Kleenex. Now he was worried even more. She was going to cry a waterfall any minute now. I didn't imply that you were lazy. I am only saying that you promised to get a kitten, and in 6 months there is no sign of one. I call that shirking your responsibility." Ralph folded his arms in front of him and glared. Cat had better get his meaning. Cat noticed the self-righteousness emanating from each of her husband's pores. Damn the blasted man, there he goes, pigging out on another date square while he scolds me for laziness. Where is the justice here? Okay, let's review this matter and find a solution. You never asked me to find a kitten. You asked me if we could get a kitten. I thought about it and said that it was okay with me. This is all I agreed, nothing else. That's the same as the promising to get one. Now he was splitting hairs. Cat was trying not to look frustrated. No, not the same, not even close. How do I find a kitten? Yellow Pages? Humane Society? You want me to check out the want ads in the newspaper? None of my friends have kittens, therefore I can't ask them. Newspapers are too small, and the other possibilities are inaccessible too. You are the one who wants a kitten, so find one. Arguments made, the snarling cat leapt from her chair and headed for the door with Duncan right beside her. There were weeds in the garden that needed to be pulled. Better weeds than the graying roots of Ralph's hair. Man, she wouldn't mind giving them a yank or two while she was at it. Duncan watched Cat as she retrieved a trowel from the garden shed and located the spot where she left off weeding the day before. Hickory sensed the anger and sauntered towards Duncan. She wanted the latest scoop. So did Cat burst into tears and throw a plate? Duncan replied with great deal of seriousness. No, she told Ralph if he wanted a kitten, he could find one for himself, and she doesn't throw plates. Well, she's absolutely right. He is certainly able to do that, but probably won't. Panda's bad enough. We sure don't need any more cats. At that point, they both heard Cat yelling at full volume, "Drat you, friggin' Thistle! Damn you, blasted burdock!" They both knew that Cat was actually referring to Ralph and not to the weeds. Think it's time for my snooze, Duncan. Don't let Cat pull up any flowers, or she will be really mad. Now that Hickory's pronouncement was issued, Hick found her shady location beside the fish pond and closed her eyes. Hickory felt secure. She wouldn't be waking to a nuisance of a kitten in her bed. As Cat would say, all's good. Summer moved on into fall, and dear Panda, after a short illness, passed away quietly. She had been with Ralph and Cat for almost 17 years, and the house wasn't the same without Panda tormenting Hickory every few hours. For this reason, Hickory was the only one not to be lamenting Panda's passing, and certainly she couldn't be faulted for sighing with relief. Her rests now progressed uninterrupted, and her food bowl went undisturbed. "This is how a home should be," Hickory announced on more than one occasion, while Duncan examined the chair where Panda used to sleep, only to find it empty and his heart bereft. During this time of cat-free living, Ralph received a phone call from his friend Doug. and from the tone of Ralph's voice, it was easy to see that something Doug was saying made him really pleased. When he hung up the phone, joy could be heard in each word. Ralph couldn't wait to share the news, and he wasted no time in doing just that. Doug just called to say there was an advertisement for free kittens at the Avondale store. You could go over and get the phone number and give Duncan a walk at the same time. It was just put up, so there are probably lots of kittens to choose from. Kat reached for her purse and looked for a pen and pencil. Did you say that the information is on the bulletin board? I won't be able to read it. The print will be too small, and I won't be able to get close enough. I think you had better get the information. Then you will have it. If I try, it will be a lost cause. Yeah, you're right. I'll drive over and get it. Then maybe we can get a kitten. Cat handed him the pen and paper, and Ralph was away in his Mazda, ready to carry out his mission impossible. Hickory was completely flummoxed. Oh, bother! That's all I need. Maybe all the kittens will be gone. I can only hope. Duncan's tail swished in happy anticipation. A kitten at last, with a tiny pink tongue and soft little paws, and a pretty mew, too. He couldn't wait. When Ralph returned with his precious phone number, he handed it to Kat and suggested she make the call before dinner. You're better at this than I am. You make the phone call. Kat was making a casserole for dinner and was in the midst of sautéing onions. She didn't want to interrupt her meal making at that moment. Ralph, you will use less time if you make the call yourself. That way you can get directions if you aren't certain where this person lives. Ralph agreed and picked up the phone. In less than 10 minutes, Ralph was hanging up the receiver, delighted with his information. I know the area well. I used to live near there. They haven't found homes for any of the kittens, and there are 6 of them. Let's go now because they are home and say it's okay. Will you choose the kitten? Ralph, this is your kitten, not mine. You should choose it. No, I want you to do that. You will like it if you choose it. If you are going with that idea, then Hickory should choose it. Kat grinned as she made that observation. They both knew that there wasn't a cat alive that could earn Hickory's seal of approval. Ralph found the kitten house with no difficulty, and before Kat knew where she was at, she found herself sitting in a sunlit room overlooking a garden of trees. This would be a cool spot any time, and she grinned in appreciation. Ralph explained to the young man that his wife wanted a kitten, and it didn't matter whether it was a male or female. Baffled, Kat was still wondering how it happened that she all of a sudden wanted the kitten, but as she studied her Dunk, it was pretty obvious that he wanted it too. Kat wisely decided to say nothing and just let Ralph carry the ball, even if he did fumble it. The purveyor of kittens brought in a ginger-colored kitten and plopped it on Kat's lap, where it just sat. After stroking it a few times, the kitten remained still and unresponsive, looking uninterested in things happening around him. This assuredly was not the cat for the Wilson household. With this thought at the top of her mind, Kat decided to take matters into her own realm. You know, this little guy seems quite shy. Perhaps he needs to be with his mom a bit longer. Have any of your kittens made a move to leave the nest to explore? I think an active kitten would be ideal if you have one. Out of 6 little critters, there must be at least one that has a bit of enthusiasm, Cat hoped. The young man picked up the kitten and left the room, returning a few minutes later with a calico kitten that was doing her best to wiggle out of his grasp. He put her in Cat's hands and informed everyone that this was the only kitten that was interested in exploring. Isn't she an adorable kitten? Could we have this one, Ralph? What do you think? You're welcome to have her, the gentleman replied. Will you take her now? Ralph was eager to complete the deal and quickly agreed. What are you feeding the kittens now? We're giving them kitten kibble and they seem to like it fine. Ralph was thinking of a much more interesting menu as they left the house, with Duncan trying to steal glances at the kitten while they settled into the car. It was obvious that Duncan was in total accord with our little Calico, and our kitten was interested in checking out anything and everything she could. So, what do you think of our tiny latest family member? I think you chose the best one. Ralph was almost as happy as Duncan. Neither of them seemed to care that the wee beast was trying its best to wiggle out of Cat's grasp and drive the Mazda herself. Ralph, you may not realize this, but we are now the parents of a calico cat. These are famous for being troublesome, stubborn, and just plain annoying. Furthermore, these traits last well into old age. You could easily have a senior calico climbing your curtains using her walker or destroying a sofa with her dentures. We will have to be strict with her and assertive or get used to living with a troublemaker. Kathy, where do you get such ideas from? I think you studied chapters from the book of nonsense. You need to choose a name for our little angel. We can't go on calling her Kitty. Hold it! You asked me to choose the kitten. There was nothing in the contract about naming it too. That is your problem. I can tell you already that this kitten is going to be a pain in the butt. Ralph shrugged. I never imagined you to be so prejudiced. You need to overcome this character flaw. Naming the kitten will help you to do this. While you are thinking of a name, you will be studying all of her good qualities. More open-minded. Crap in a teapot! Cat exclaimed as she tugged the kitten's claws out of the upholstery. We'll see just what gem I can come up with. Ralph stopped at the pet store on the way home and bought several kinds of food for the kitten. He was so happy with the day and his kitten. As the kitten was set down on the floor in the dining room, Cat resumed making the casserole while Ralph set up the water and food bowls for his little friend. Duncan supervised the kitten's activity, nosing her out of harm's way when her curiosity got too dangerous for Duncan's liking. Look at that! Duncan isn't letting her near the stairs. What a good kitty sitter he is. Ralph was both surprised and pleased. Cat sighed. Her poor Dunk wasn't going to have a minute's peace with the calico installed. Once the casserole was in the oven, Cat put fresh food and water in Duncan and Hickory's dishes. Now there ought to be some calm, and for 2 minutes the sound of crunching dog food was all that could be heard, until an affronted bark disturbed the stillness. Cat looked up from the salad she was making to notice the kitten in Hickory's bowl rolling about in the dinner. To say Hickory wasn't pleased with the situation would certainly be an understatement, but Ralph thought it was so cute. Cat did not, and removed the offending calico. She then washed the dish and added some kibble. Hickory, you need to eat more quickly. As dinner was served, Ralph relished the mashed potatoes and chicken casserole. He foolishly approached the delicate question. So, have you thought of a name for our little sweetheart yet? Duncan looked on with some interest. He was expecting some sarcasm from Cat. Hickory was hoping that Cat would suggest that they just throw the bum out. But Cat smiled at Ralph in his chair at the end of the table and replied, "The perfect name for our calico popped into my mind as I was popping the casserole into the oven earlier. I think the name Lucifer would be just right." "No, that won't do at all. You need to give this some more thought. You need to consider her colors, the cute little Charlie Chaplin mustache under her nose. You aren't taking this at all seriously." The next morning, Cat was making pancakes for breakfast, while the calico problem rubbed her cheek against Ralph's beard. He thought she was so adorable. The man was totally lacking in insight where that cat was concerned. Cat tried to be reasonable, but it wasn't easy. In fact, the whole business was nauseating. Let's see. There's the pancakes and the maple syrup on the table, but I need to bring in the coffee. As Cat returned from the kitchen with the coffee pot in hand, she stopped and screeched with angry certainty. "That cat has no business on the table, and she doesn't belong in my plate of pancakes. Get her out of there." The fires of rage were burning hot, with no sign of them cooling off. "Cat, just look at her. She's so sweet. I think she really likes your maple syrup. She'll soon have it all licked from your plate." Ralph was deriving much more enjoyment from the kitten's antics than Cat, but of course, they weren't Ralph's pancakes. "I was wondering if you thought of a good name for the kitten yet. You've had all night to think of it." Ralph had no sense of timing, and Cat was getting fed up with the whole ridiculous situation. "Here is a fantastic name for a fiend who steals my maple syrup. I have decided to call her Beelzebub. It fits her exactly." "Cat, that's not funny at all. Heck, I can't even spell that one." "It can't be that hard to think of a name for our kitten. Come on, you aren't even trying. If she were a dog, you wouldn't have any trouble at all." "We'll name her Lassie, then." Cat could see this wasn't going to be a fantastic day. She got the Cheerios out of the cupboard. She didn't want the pancakes anyway. To be absolutely fair, she recognized the fact that she was the one who selected the pest in the first place. Cat fully understood the problem a calico kitten brought with it, but that marmalade Tommy wouldn't have been nearly as entertaining. Clearly, this was yet another example of Cat's complete craziness. That afternoon, Hickory was sound asleep on the Chesterfield, lying on her back with her feet pointing ceilingwards. Vociferous snores echoed throughout the room, while Cat made large print plant signs for her chrysanthemums and hostas. Duncan watched the kitten playing with a pen. Ralph had been using it to record the activity of his latest stock acquisitions. No one noticed when the beast abandoned the pen and climbed up on the back of the Chesterfield, where Hickory was innocently sleeping. As the Calico coiled the muscles of her hind legs in preparation for a spring, no one recognized the two tiny horns budding from its furry brow. With a leap that Satan himself would have been proud to perform, the calico beast executed a four-pawed landing on Hickory's unsuspecting tummy. Two startled barks, and Hickory was rolling onto the floor with the startled kitten making a 2.5 turn somersault in midair. Hickory sought solace as she pressed her face into Cat's loving and consoling lap. I don't like that cat. She isn't very nice. Tell Duncan that his cat is bad. Cat stroked her poor Hickory and checked out her belly for scratches. Never mind, Hickory. Let's get you a treat. That will be just what you need to feel a lot better. With her tail wagging, Hickory followed into the kitchen for her treat. Duncan brought up the rear, knowing that he would get one too. Ralph picked up the kitten and told her she was in dangerous waters, yet he couldn't help but smile. She had certainly delivered one big surprise to Hickory. As Cat resumed her task, making plant signs, Ralph wanted to know, is Hick okay? Were there any scratches? No physical injuries, but believe me, Hickory is planning on revenge. That kitten is going to learn all about sneaky Labradors. Ralph considered the wisdom of his next question and then decided to go ahead and ask. Have you got any more ideas of what we shall call the kittens? This is my last suggestion. You have already rejected two of my names, so if you turn this one down, you can darned well think of one yourself. Cat was positive she was going to waste no more of her intellect on names for that friggin' cat. Yeah, okay. So what's the name you've chosen? After that mean trick she played on Hickory just now, she should be named Satan. That's my choice. Take it or leave it. I'm leaving it, replied Ralph. I can certainly do better than that. Ralph picked up his newspaper and took it out with him to read on the patio. Cat's lips turned up at the corners. She could hardly wait to hear what he came up with. It was nearly evening, and there was a lively game of get the ball being played in the side yard. Duncan had the ball, and Hickory just failed to make an interception. Cat was attempting a new strategy. When Ralph entered the frenzy, grabbed the ball and threw it. I have the name for the kitten. From now on, she will be called Funny Face. Everyone came to a standstill. Funny Face, did you say? Funny Face? That sounds insulting to me. It's at least as bad as any of the names I suggested. Cat wasn't ready to give in gracefully to that. No, it's not insulting. Funny Face is a term of endearment. It's a loving name, sort of a nickname. Ralph was adamant about the rightness of his choice. It sounds insulting to me. Just where have you heard this term of endearment being used, pray tell? Well, you of all people should know that. What with all the singing you do, it's in Chattanooga Choo Choo. Ralph walked off, and Kat stood there displaying a pensive expression as her lips moved. Could anyone doubt that in her mind she was reviewing the words of Chattanooga Choo Choo? In a few minutes her feet were dancing and she was singing. Kat smiled her affirmation. There's gonna be a certain party at the station, dressed in satin and lace, I used to call Funny Face. And she's gonna cry until I tell her that I'll never roam. So Chattanooga choo-choo, won't you choo-choo me home? And that's how Funny Face got her name. And to this day, she's lived up to Crazy Cat's predictions. Funny Face continues to prove herself obnoxious, infuriating, and a holy terror. Yet, she's part of a song, so that's fine with Cat.